So you want to learn how to build trees in Minecraft. In this video, I have 4 steps on how I build trees, and you can too. Starting with reference. Now reference is one of the key points of doing this, and that is to know what you're building. If you don't know what you're building, it's kind of hard to. I would suggest go to Google, or taking a step outside and looking up types of trees in certain areas. So in my forever world, I'm building the coastal south. So I looked up coastal, like trees in the coastal south. I came up with loblolly pines, and the images that it showed up specifically to what I needed, which was a marsh, were these kind of upright pines that didn't have the branches going all the way down. So that's what I used for my inspiration. For this big tree back here, this southern live oak, I also used a certain image for the inspiration. So if you reference pictures from Google, that's really good, and that's a great start. But if you reference pictures from actual trees that you see, taking pictures yourself, that's even better. Why? Because you can kind of get a better understanding, more angles of how the trees look. And of course, that helps you build the branches and the leaves, which we will go into in our next step, which is structure. Let's break down trees into 2 types. We have oaks, and then we have spruces, well, pines, not spruces. So pines are the easiest. Why? Because literally you can build them straight up with just a few branches, or how B-Dubs has done here, straight up with very few branches, actually really no branches at all, and building the leaves around them. Now of course, B-Dubs way of doing it is better for this type of pine tree than it is for our kind of taller pine. Yeah, pines are broken up into 2 types, with the main type that you may be familiar with being this one here, the upright pine. Now, this is kind of more your Christmas tree shape and what you would traditionally build in a cold biome forest, and what you see in the game in the taiga biomes. But these types of pines, which are lacking the bottom branches, are a lot more common in the south here, and of course are dignified by the kind of all the leaves being at the top. So using the references that you can find, you can actually pretty easily build the trees. It's all about branch structure. So if you take an image and you analyze it, you can go to Microsoft Paint. You can do the main kind of bridge part, the main trunk bridge, the main trunk in red, and then your branches you have to find and then color them in a different color. And this helps you a lot when you're referencing an image, and of course then building it. So you can see here, I did my trees in red. Now although this one looks terrible, I did my trunk and branches in red. So using the references, you want to build a tree based off the branches, because it's easier to build stuff off of real things than it is for stuff you're making up in your head. So I can do a quick example of this. Alright, so I found an image of a pine tree on Google. It's from the Britannica. Now, looking at it, it has, you know, a bunch of a really wide middle branch, and then, well, middle trunk, and then it breaks off into a second one, which goes vertically up, and then, you know, a bunch of little ones. So we're just going to start by building our middle, or our trunk. Holy moly. Okay. I can't build like this. Alright. So we have our trunk. Now let's kind of replicate the shape of the... I guess that's a branch of the branch. So it kind of goes pretty off pretty quickly. And then it's, you know, it's pretty straight up. So like that, I think is pretty good. So then a bunch of our other branches are pretty straightforward. They're just kind of, you know, the average. Go out. And they extend pretty far out. Now, a tip that I learned from B-dubs is about the branch structures. So if you have branches that are straight up like this, they're actually less healthy than the branches closer to a 90-degree angle. And I don't really know why that is. It just is. But I learned that from B-dubs, and that's a helpful tip. I'm not gonna get too much further in, but that's an example of how you would do it. Now, the next part of our structure of our trees is actually, you know, besides planning out the branches, is building the branches. Now, there's a few options you do. On this tree here, you can see that I have the branches just kind of shooting out and then breaking into smaller ones. Now, having these wide ones is good for, you know, the big, strong, hardy branches. Like this is the main trunk of the tree, and then it branches out. Yeah, so on our southern live oak, we have the main trunk, and then our branches kind of stay the same width up until, you know, they start to break into some smaller ones, and then ultimately into some smaller ones. Now for oaks, for really big oaks like this, I would recommend kind of following this structure. But for our pines here, the branches tend to be a lot weaker because, you know, the density of the like pines is a lot less. So that's why our branches here are like slabs and stuff. So I think I've covered all the bases for structures. So now it's time to go into the leaves. Now when you're looking at your reference, there's a couple of things to look at for the leaves. Of course, if you're doing a pine tree, it's important to look at if it's upright pine like this, to where the leaves kind of can't like go down, or if it's more of a pine like we have here, where the branches, well, the leaves look a lot more like like an oak tree. All right, so these are our, I believe, 11 types of leaves. Now we have oak, spruce, birch, jungle, acacia, dark oak, mangrove, cherry, pale oak, and then our 2 azalea leaves. Now, our main spruce leaves are actually spruce, birch, and acacia, and that's because they have, you know, the much more thin, spread out leaves here. You can see that both in the acacia and the birch, and of course, spruce being the pine trees, the actual only pine tree in the game. Even though I'm not that educated on trees, I just built them well enough. So, of course, oak and dark oak are our oak trees, and we have a more jungle type with jungle and mangrove. And then our very specific ones are cherry and pale oak. Now, azalea is good because it can kind of be used universally. It's a very bright green. So we can see B-dubs here used azalea as a pine leaf at the very top where the most light is. Now, azalea can really go both ways, especially the non-flowering version, and the flowering version was really good for oaks. So that's kind of breaking down each leaf. So when you're building a pine tree, you really want to use birch, like B-dubs use birch here a lot to have a middle ground. But on mine, I used acacia as the lightest one, the one that's getting the most light, and then to shade it, I used birch as the darker one. I mean, naturally. And then of course spruce as the darkest. And that's kind of the same as B-dubs did here, except for he used azalea. An important thing to remember is also biome tint. The color of the leaves are going to change per biome. Just watch out for that. And for your oaks here, I used dark oak. Now I have a Vanilla Tweaks texture pack on, which makes them a lot darker. But you can also see I used birch and spruce. Now, I've been hyping up the whole leaf difference thing, but we don't have a lot of green blocks in the game if you haven't noticed. So you don't restrict yourself to certain leaves because we don't have a lot of green block types. So I used Axiom Auto Shade here. Of course I set it to only 3 certain types of blocks. So spruce is supposed to be the darkest, even though if I was going back and doing it today, after what I've learned, I would probably keep these oak or dark oak, and then of course some of these are good, but yeah, shading is an important thing, but we'll get into that later. But when you're building your tree like I've done here, of course you have your branches done, but set it all to one leaf first. That's going to be very important, just so you can visualize it better and your workflow will be a lot better. Now, kind of an honorable mention tip is scalability. So this is a pine tree here, even though it could be an oak. But you can see here we used oak and birch, and it's a lot more scaled down, a lot more brought out. And when we scale it down, I would start with a trunk here and then use wood types. Now, I would have used gray blocks, but we don't have a gray wood type yet until the poplar update comes out, whenever it does. But dang, that's another thing I forgot to mention. I also like to use a lot of grays for trees. It's a lot easier. You have way more block types than the woods, and also most of your trees in real life are, the bark is gray. I should have thrown that in with the structure part, but that's all me. But yeah, speaking of scalability, here's a B-dubs tree. And here's a B-dubs tree. They're both pine trees in the same forest, coming out of Season 10. But you can see here that B-dubs tree here is a lot more sparse with the leaves, and it's a lot more compact, and of course shorter. So scaling is actually pretty difficult, but if you just follow reference, and then of course if you just kind of think about shrinking it down, it'll all work out. Alright, and then our fourth and final step is coloring / shading. So, as I was just speaking of, grays. Grays are going to be the big heavy hitter. And there are actually 2 gray wood types, acacia and pale oak. Now, pale oak's very kind of bluish gray tone. Actually, it's kind of purplish, and it's a lot darker. Acacia wood blends in a lot more with stone, but we have, you know, plenty of blocks to choose from. We have tough, pale moss, deep slate, basalt. Of course, that gets into shading. Here, B-dubs used acacia and tough, and then starwood spruce, which makes it look really good. But tough, cobblestone, and stone are all really good blocks to use. And gray, as I said earlier, is just important because of the fact that in real life most of our trees are gray. So if you kind of follow that system, it will apply really well. And of course, we have access to walls, which will help too. But shading is going to be important too. Now you see here, this is one of our pine trees, one of my pine trees that I made. So you can see at the top, it is stone, and it gets brighter as it goes down. That's because the highest density of shadowing through leaves is at the top of the tree. So naturally, it would be darker. Now, let's take a look at a quick before and after of changing one setting. So here is the before of the setting change, and here's the after the setting change. Do you notice anything different? Well, if you said the tree got brighter, that is because I changed the brightness of my game to 100. Having your brightness at 100 is one of the worst things you could do for your trees. Look how different this southern live oak looks. There's no shadowing. It all just looks bright. It looks like you dropped it out of an image. Like, it looks like it's on a set, a studio set. Now let's change the brightness back down to 30. You see the shadows that come back in, and the shadowing, you know, on the branches, especially over here, how much less bright the calcite range is. It's such a big change. That's going to be the number one thing. You don't even have to shade your trees that much, but if you have your brightness on 30, it's going to help you a long way. But I would suggest getting a gradient. Also, I would suggest building all your trees in creative and using Axiom, because with Axiom, it makes your tree building a lot easier. How come, 87, you may ask? Well, in Axiom, you can see we have color picker and gradient helper. So once you get, so let's say we're working with some grays. We have stone, and I kind of want to progress all the way to cobbled deep slate. So if I go to gradient helper, I put in my input of stone and cobbled deep slate, it generates a bunch of blocks in the game to get the cobbled deep slate. And you can, how do I reshuffle? Refresh. And you can cycle between these blocks. Of course, you can't use bedrock, but it helps you get a lot of gradients. Now, of course, your gradients are going to be different from the types of trees. Like with oaks, it's going to be a lot more brought out, and then a lot more exact, well, a lot quicker with pines. That's just because you can kind of get immediately more light on a pine tree than you can a thick oak tree. But you can see here, I started with birch, progressed to white concrete, calcite, diorite, bone block, mushroom stem, light gray concrete powder, and then stone. And of course, they get grayer with each block. And over here, you can see I kind of kept the moderate tone. Of course, I am getting darker as I go, and it's not really the best gradient from deep slate to pale oak, but around the branches, I'm definitely keeping it darker here, although the light says otherwise. Another thing with shading, follow the light. If the light is showing you one thing when you set your brightness to 30, that probably means you should follow it. So this branch here should actually be a lot brighter than what it is. But yeah, doing shading goes a long way in helping your trees just look natural. And of course, another thing is you want to keep the bottom bright and the tops dark. That is because, you know, all the leaves are soaking up the light, and it's not letting any light through. But where there's less surface area, of course, you can get more light in. So I think I covered all the bases. You can't exactly follow a tutorial for a tree. Alright, all trees are different. They're organic. They can't all be the same. But if you just practice in a creative world and you use references, follow the branch structures, and then follow kind of how the leaves are shaped, that'll all be good. And one final thing about shading. Let's go into Axiom, the editing thing, which is right shift. Alright, so I already have the auto shade pulled up, but if you go to operations and then auto shade, and of course magic select your leaves too, because so we're just going to use this throwaway tree that I have here. So I have all the spruce leaves selected, and I'm going to have my selection in the auto shade. Now we're going to do custom shade, and I like to do my shading from the top because it's just the easiest. I'm doing it from a certain angle, and also kind of easier to keep consistent. So we just get rid of all these. So I'm gonna do birch leaves, and then we're gonna do let's do acacia leaves. So we're gonna follow my gradient for the stuff. So then spruce leaves. So we have our stuff in order from darkness. So let's just let's bring these values, swap them out. Let's auto shade. So you can see this is a bit much. I don't know how this happened. And let me get a better example. Jeez. Alright, well, clearly Axiom's set on one thing. But using the auto shade tool in Axiom is what I've done for literally all my trees. And it's really helpful just because it takes the work out of it. Now, of course, you're going to have to do a lot of tweaking going back and forth from each. But that will help you on the shading. So that rounds out the final step of shading. And if y'all want how to do forest, got you. Just let me know. Leave a comment if you made it this far too. So, thank you for watching this video. I was glad to make this tutorial. And yeah, thank y'all for watching, and God bless. Thank y'all.